All right.
Boy, they're 14 years old, leading each other around on leashes, and I'm like, first off, get out of my community. Second,
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Kansas City Legends. And guys, I'm super excited about this. This is the first time I got to take 2-1 at once. I have. What do you go by now? Because I've seen you with 5 different names. I have Zephyr and Jacob from Midnight Howl. Is that better? Can I call
That'll
you?
work.
That'll work?
Absolutely.
What is your pup name?
Pup Saz.
Okay, and Saz. But I just call you Jacob.
That works too.
That's fine.
They both serve the same purpose.
How about that? So we are here. They're from Midnight Howl. Midnight Howl is the puppy organization. It's the Pups and Trainers.
Pets and trainers.
Pets and Trainers. So tell me about Midnight Howl.
So, Midnight Howl was my baby when I first started coming out into the community. For me, I would come out into the community and I would be the only pet out there, and it was one of those things where I would literally go out to the bar and I'd be wearing my gear and there was no other pets out. And then the second time I'd go out, there was no other pets. And the third time, oh wait, there's one more. And then the fourth time there were 2 more, so on and so forth. And I kind of started seeing a lack of a community, but people that wanted a community. So that was part of my platform that when I was working with Show Me Leather. After I won the first title, that I came back. I'm like, okay, my goal is to build a community in the Kansas City area, because that's what I wanted. I don't care if anybody else wanted it. That's what I wanted.
And you are also a pioneer.
Also a pioneer, yes.
And you are a Show Me Leather title holder. So you've got like the bona fides. You are.
So I'm a KC Pioneer. I do identify as a leather puppy. So I do tend to go more towards the leather gear. But Pioneer for the leather. I'm the Show Me Leather puppy for 2019, 2020, 2021. And also the Midwest puppy, the regional puppy for 2019, 2020, 2021.
Okay. And Jacob, Saz, how did you get into the community?
So I've been in and out of the community for, I think, since I was 20 years old.
So a year and a half ago.
Roughly. I've been a puppy roughly about 9 years, I want to say. I had moved to Kansas City roughly around the same time that Zephyr had moved back to Kansas City. I ran into Zephyr at a local bar in Kansas City called Woody's and noticed his collar. So at that point I was like, oh, okay. We had been friends, stuff like we became friends, as I should say. From there, he had worked into worked into Show Me Leather, started Midnight Howl, and then I kind of joined thereafter.
Okay, and you guys kind of like run it together.
So that's another interesting story because I didn't get involved until the start of the pandemic. So whenever some of the restrictions started to lighten up, I remember going to Zephyr's house. We were sitting around his island, and
As we do.
And we were talking, and I was like, listen, I want to get more involved in all that. And he was like, well, then let me, just come on. If you want to jump in head first. And I remember having the conversation, if we're going to do this and make it the premier group for Kansas City for pets, let's do it. And that's kind of where I had gotten involved. And then that's where kind of Midnight Howl has...
It has exploded. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, one of the things that kind of came up with it, and it struck a chord with me because one of the things that Saz had mentioned to me was like, I know that it takes money to make this grow, and I'm willing to also help put towards that money because I've been doing it all myself. And he's like, I'm willing to help do that as well, and I want this community as bad as you do. So I'm willing to kind of help do that. And the two of us, especially during the pandemic or towards the end of it and everything, we were trying to keep it afloat. And it, like I said, it takes money to do that. We were once the restrictions were letting up. It was like, we're going to do a barbecue this month. We're going to do another barbecue this month. And we're going to order pizzas this month. And we were doing everything we could to get people back involved with the community again. And it takes money. It costs a lot.
It does.
And so having that, that second person to kind of help carry that was amazing. So.
And then it quickly also became my adopted child from Zephyr. I was like, oh, we're fathers now. We're fathers now. So it was quickly like, the minute any kind of restriction started to lighten up, we were like, what can we do? Are people willing to come out? And in some of our events, as anyone that is either watching or has ever been a part of, no one likes a Zoom call. And that's what we were doing. We were getting 3 and 4. And some of these things, it's just us like, hey, whenever things lighten up, we're going to do this. It was us repeating the same things of like, hey, when this lightens up, we're going to do this. And like, some of our meetings were just, how are you doing?
What's going on? There would be 3 people on a Zoom call because that's all we had.
And then it started to where it was like, where can, not we push it, but what will the pandemic restrictions allow? And then as things have lightened up, we've hit that limit every chance we got, where it was like, let us turn this event into the most we can, be it whatever money we need to put into it, whatever, it quickly became something we put pedal to the ground to get all the way through.
We would set up a few events. It would be starting with literally, we wanted to do something like, let's do a barbecue. And normally we would say, let's make it a potluck. But because of the pandemic and because of everything else, we don't want all these people making food and bringing stuff in.
Let me tell you something. I personally am not a fan of a potluck because I don't know what.
You can't eat from everybody's kitchen.
Right.
There's a huge thing. You can't eat from everybody's kitchen.
So we kind of got that's fine. We'll buy everything. We will provide it all. We will do what we need to do. That way we don't have to bring that other aspect in.
Because some people like to put like to let their cats lick the bowl.
Some people have children. Some people.
Listen, I said cats, so you wish it. Some people have children.
Some people have children. Some people have cats. Some people, I saw on the internet, somebody on TikTok was like, hey, put your toilet seat in the dishwasher. And I was like, no. You can't eat at everybody's house.
You can't. I saw this on TikTok. This was a couple months back. They called them kitty biscuit cookies.
I don't want to know.
I swear to God, if you was feeding food to people, because I know cats make biscuits, I swear to God, if you told me that a cat made the biscuit that I just ate,
I'm fucking you up.
Assault. I'm going to jail.
Let the cat make the bit I will fuck you up in here. Do you understand?
Calling the police.
You might as well go ahead call the. We're moving furniture. I'm not playing. Listen, I can't. I was like, you can't eat everybody in everybody's kitchen, and so I personally am not a potluck kind of girl. I can't.
I'm not. I am also. We will often suggest people. We're like, you can bring a pack of snacks because the pandemic still definitely is a thing right now.
Yep.
It is still certain precautions. So we do encourage people if you're gonna pick up something, pick up shareable snacks bags of chips, the big party packs
individual
of chips.
packs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't want your hands in. Listen, I don't know if you wash your hands or if you might. Mm-mm.
But it's kind of. Putting us back on track. That was a big. Sorry.
Listen, this part of the show is not being on track. It's what we do.
Okay, I was about to say that is going to be a big thing. This whole conversation.
The squirrel.
That was a big thing whenever we were starting back up, was to go into that with both restrictions in mind and then go as far as we could with each event. What can we do? How many? There was restrictions of you can't have more than 10 people in a space. We're like, 10 people is the goal. Let's get 10 people. 20 people? Absolutely. Let's put 20
And we were doing things.
in.
We were doing things, including renting out the movie theaters, which you could do. You get 20 people into a movie, and you just rent out the theater for $100 or $120 or whatever the case was. And so we would do that. We would do everything we could to try and make sure that we were keeping as much of the community alive as we could during that time frame.
I didn't know anything about Midnight Howl until I got into the Pioneers. But one of the things that I've noticed and that I look at in kind of awe is how you during the pandemic managed to not only have this thing, but also allow it to grow. Like it grew. It felt like to me it grew during the pandemic as well.
At the end. So we were at a point right before the pandemic. We were at a point, so we always hold the meetings at my house. And we were at a point to where we were ready to we were outgrowing my house really, really fast, and we're back there. But that's another story. We were outgrowing the house really quickly. We need to find another place to hold our meetings because it's just space is not big enough. We were having 40 people show up to our meetings, and my space just wasn't accommodating for 40 people. So
although I've seen you put 60 people in that house.
That I've put up 250, but that's a whole other story. So
we'll go there. We'll get there. We're not there yet.
We're not there yet. No. So what we would end up doing during the pandemic, all of a sudden our meetings went from 40 people to Zoom calls of 3 people, 4 people, and it's like we get what do we want? How can we even talk about? It's just more of a social hey, we're still here. We're trying to keep things up. We're trying to do what we can. But towards the end, as things were starting to lift, that's when we were like, okay, we need to jump in and pedal to the metal. We need to go. We need to kind of make sure that we get everyone involved every chance we get. We're back to a point where we got about 30 to 40 people on average showing up to our meetings and stuff like that. So we're getting back up to that point, but it grew a lot. It shrunk. A lot of the same members, some new members, but it shrunk during the pandemic a little bit, but we did what we could to kind of keep it back on track, and it takes work.
And one of the things that I really kind of enjoyed watching, because I went to a Midnight Howl meeting, is it's such a laid back atmosphere. You got work done, you know what I'm saying? But it's a laid back atmosphere. People are just kind of talking and chilling, and then you're like, hey,
and that's how it has to be. You have to afford a very relaxed, welcoming environment, but at the same time, we are still a group. There are things we're trying to accomplish. Not only as a full, I don't want to say full-fledged member because a lot of it is done between Zephyr and I, but even our more active members are still a huge part of what we do. It is, hey, we're here to have fun. We're here to have a good time. It's literally one of the main focuses of what Pet Play is to have a good time, be yourself, all this stuff. But there are certain focuses where it's there's things we need to move forward on to really accomplish something in the community. Because while we are definitely growing within the Kansas City community, we have to do the things to grow.
Right. And do you think that, before we get into what Pet Play is, because I'm sure there's a lot of you that are like, I don't even know what Pet Play is. I just see some people with a dog hood on and they just keep it moving. But do you think that the pandemic allowed you to refocus on some things?
I'm going to say yes. So anytime you're going to sit at home by yourself, just isolated, you're going to be able to reflect and all of that. And I think the comment you had made earlier where you were coming out in gear and people were seeing you knew that they were hungry for a community. They wanted this community. I think while the pandemic was, of course, hurtful to us and hurtful to everyone else, coming out of it, people were just that much hungrier for it. They were just we need that connection. And I mean, that was everything. Everyone needed that connection, that human interaction, all that stuff. But on our side with the pet community, we got so much just interaction. People were like, what can we do to help? And even today, we still get that. New people are coming in. What can I do to help? What can I do? And we're just attend, activate, anything.
90% of it for us is exactly that. Attend and be there.
Yeah.
Because as long as you're there, that gives us a purpose. That gives the group a purpose. It's a point to move forward. Once I see that we are moving forward, and once we see okay, we've got a need for A, B, or C, that allows us to then shift our focus for A, B, or C as needed. But when nobody's attending and nobody's doing things, you're kind of well, what do I do? Where am I gonna go?
I call it the why bother.
Right.
There's because I have I'm still there. I have my little group, my meat locker group that I'm hey, I want people to come. Yeah, it's called the meat locker. It's cute.
I know. Just hearing that word out loud.
I just think it's a cute name.
I am a fan.
But, it's, there are times when you're trying, and I started that during the pandemic because, hey, there's, especially I came into the kink world from the straight side, strangely enough. I didn't know, I didn't know gay kink existed, girl. I'm still getting lessons every day.
It do.
It do be existing.
It do be there.
And so I was like, where's all the kinky gays at? Like, where the hell are they at? Found them. We'll get there. We're not there yet. But I was like, there's got to be a space. And, everyone was telling me, they're like, there isn't one. So I was like, fuck it, I'll create one. But I found that it was so hard getting people to connect or be active. And so I got to a point where I was like, why bother? And I'm wondering were there ever those moments, especially when you were having those 3 people, maybe 4 people Zoom calls where you were like, why am I doing this?
Yep. Regularly.
So I'll tell you that I jumped in much late, because Midnight Howl was almost a full year old before I jumped in at the beginning of the pandemic. There are times, almost today, where I'm just like, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? Is there growth? Is there community? And then I go to an event. I go to one of our hosted events. I show up at a barbecue we're hosting, just even at Zephyr's house. 10 people show up and they are ecstatic to be there. And that's what does it. That is why we do it. It can honestly be one person that's just like, I'm so happy you're doing this. And that is what it's for.
I get messages on a regular of somebody that says, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing for the community, and I can't, it means the world to me that, I have a safe space, or that I have a place to go, or that I can see like-minded people, or, you see that gamut of, any reason it could be, and you hear that, and
this is why.
That's why I do.
That's the why bother. And there is during the pandemic where I'm holding a Zoom meeting. I'm like, there are 3 people showing up. Why do I even bother scheduling a Zoom meeting?
Right.
But I do.
It's why I could be doing something else with this time.
Right.
And it almost becomes one of those things where you start to, and this is maybe a me thing, where you start to kind of resent that time because you're like, I took the time out of my day to host this meeting or to do this thing. And 3 people showed up.
And there's that idea of it, but then I also understand that I'm one of those people that I work on Zoom all day long for work. The last thing I want to do on a Sunday is get on Zoom. Well, no.
But I had to get to that point where I was like, look, I spent all day on this damn computer. The last thing I want to do is talk to somebody on a motherfucking computer about
hey, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? What's your day going like? It's that, for me, especially during the pandemic, it was that need, like you said, to be connected and stay connected in some kind of way.
There was a huge need for just human interaction. I am fortunate that I lived with somebody. I know you have somebody as well. I had I can have conversations with somebody. There's some individuals people that I know personally, that didn't have that direct oh, hey, there's another person here. Something. And
even though you had another person to interact with, sometimes he was like,
sometimes I'm like, you gotta go.
Please find.
Can you go buy groceries?
Can you go make groceries?
Listen, I heard they got some tissue at the Walmart at 119th. Please go.
And and I, as a person who is I am an extroverted introvert. I need human interaction. I crave it. It makes me. But then there's times where I'm like,
get away from me.
Get the fuck. It's just me in the bed and Stranger Things. You know what I'm saying?
Speaking of,
I'm almost at the end. I'm on the last episode. We can talk about it.
I gotta binge it, so I have to wait till all of it comes out.
Oh no, girl, it's everything.
I know.
But so let's talk about what is pet play. Because I was like, so this was, again, new to me.
I will start with my initial... So I've got a few things to say about this, and you can shut me up at any point.
Go for it.
First thing to say, and I want to be very, very, very clear on this, pet play does not include any play with any biological pet at all. It has nothing to do with a real dog, a real cat, a real any other animal, period. That is
not your actual pet.
We are not dealing with any type of biological pet. What we are dealing with, though, is individuals who basically, it's a form of role play. It is you take on that personality of that pet, whether that's a dog, whether that's a cat, whether it's a raven, whether it's a dragon, whether it's a basilisk. It doesn't matter what it is. If that is what you want to identify as, and what inner, personality you want to channel, that's what pet play is. There are 4 types of pet play, or 4 types of pets, I should say. First one is what I like to call a social pet. So your social pet are exactly that. They like to go to the bar, put on their gear, and they be social. They just want to look around and be like, I want to be seen, I'm social. Their second one is a psychological pet. The psychological pet is the one that goes into the headspace and becomes that pet. When you go into that headspace and you literally focus, you put on blinders, nothing else matters. What does a dog like to do? The dog likes to run, play, have fun, love, give attention, lick, kiss, and just have the blast of their life. Hump too.
Maybe. That's the next one.
Yes. But that's all that matters. What the dog doesn't have to deal with is bills, family issues, drama, any of this other crap. So you put on blinders to all of this other stuff. I know, right?
That sounds wonderful.
Exactly.
Have an extra hood.
It is almost very therapeutic to a certain extent, and for many people, it is almost a form of therapy. I won't say it is therapy because it is not, but it is therapeutic. The third type of pet is typically a sexual pet. Exactly what you think that is. The sexual pet is going to be, somebody who wants to put on their hood and they want to fuck like dogs. And they enjoy that aspect of it. Fuck like dogs.
Not fuck dogs.
Not fuck dogs.
Do not fuck your dog.
Right.
We don't condone.
We do not
that behavior.
No. And I would say the majority, like 99.9% of all pets, don't condone that.
Right.
I can't speak for everybody, but
it's not 100% because nothing is 100%, girl.
Exactly. And then the fourth is your slave or your service dog. Or service pup, and they actually do exactly that. They perform a service. I have a friend who is very claustrophobic and goes to the bars, and their service pup does a job for them, and their job is to basically block people and keep people away from crowding their handler or their friend when they're out. That's his service. He kind of keeps a little bit of a bubble around them. So And again, that kind of transfers into slave. And the slave can really go back and forth between sexual or service, depending on how you run it.
I will always have issues with using the term slave, but I let people have what they want.
And that comes from the BDSM community. And where a lot of it, I think, really even mainstream started, right? Is I my favorite story that I like to hear and say is, one day somebody said, took their master slave relationship that they had or sir slave relationship, and then they take this and they're like, I'm going to make you dress like a dog and I'm going to walk you out in public, and then that person turned around and be like, I kind of
dig that.
I'm okay with that. And then and so it kind of backfired, and hence we have puppy play or pet play.
There are also a million different stories as how puppy play and pet play got started. There's the story of the POW that was treated like a dog,
came back.
Came back and was treated like. There's so many different instances of this is the start of pet play. The root of it is.
And you go back and you look at ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and you see them dressed up like animals and you see them role playing as animals and as kids, we're taught, we walk around in kindergarten, acting like an elephant, pretend you're a dog, pretend you're a pig, We all do it. We grow up with that.
Pretend like I was the elephant.
Right? So there is that.
2 questions. The first question, I asked you this before when we were at the bar the other night. And that is, I am versed in the furry community. I'm not a furry, but I have 95% of my friends at one point were all furries. And so I asked you, I said, so does that make all pups are furries? And that all pups are furries, but not all furries are pups. And you were like, no.
So it's a Venn diagram with a massive overlap. A massive overlap. There are a lot of pups that are furries, and there are a lot of furries that are pups. There are a lot of people that are equally both, and then there are pups that would never, ever, ever touch furry, and there are furries that are like, keep that out of my convention. Sorry about that.
I feel like that touched a nerve.
Oh, it's fine. It's a very big Twitter argument. And I mean, we can touch on that later, where then that kind of leads into whole kink being out in public and all that stuff. We can get into that later. But there is a large overlap between pups and furries and that whole animalistic desire / behavior and treatment.
I'll probably screw up this phrase because I haven't said it out loud in a long time, but there is that whole anthropomorphic ideal of it, which is more of the furry aspect of it, versus I think a little bit more of the role play, which becomes a little bit more of the pet.
The pet thing. Because I look at it as, Mama, turn this off. If you were listening to begin with, I look at it like I could see where it's a pup hood and that would be sexy, or can be sexy. I've seen very sexy people in that. I can't look at like a furry porn and be like, yeah, that makes my dick hard. I can't.
Some people look at it as they're like, oh, those 2 mascots are really going at it. And some people look at us in pup hoods and they're like, wow, those 2 weirdos are really going at it. It's that same thing, and if it's for you, it's for you, and if it's not for you, scroll.
That's kind of my thing.
Swipe left.
Swipe left, scroll, do what you do, but it's for somebody. And I have personally learned that there is something for everybody. My favorite thing to say is, we all out here living a life. We just out here living different lives.
Different lives. Listen,
very different lives.
I tell you, there's a lid for every pot.
There's
a lid for every pot. You know what I'm saying? That pot might be busted, but there's a busted lid.
There's a lid for it.
There's a lid for it. Somebody is into it. But I look at it, I'm like, because for a while, like I said, I've been friends with furries for years. And they're like, oh, you're a furry. And I'm like, the art doesn't, I love hanging out with people.
You're like, it's cute.
Yeah, it's cute. I love hanging out with people who are authentically themselves.
I will say personally, I think that's one of my favorite things about both the puppy pet, and furry community is that these people, the minute you put them in that environment, that's who they are.
Yeah.
That is 100%. There's no hiding it. They're just this is who I am. I guess my second favorite thing about that is that it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, bi, non-binary, transgender. It does not matter. These individuals are who they are. They're in this environment, and it's so accepting, and that's I get you. My favorite thing about the entire.
It's such a when I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine before, and I was like, and I'm a prude. Strangely enough, I make the joke that I'm an innocent flower, but really I'm just a fucking prude. And I was like, I hang out with furries because it gives me a chance to for just a couple of hours, let my hair down and just say the things that normally I wouldn't say out loud.
So, oddly enough, that goes a lot towards why I really fell into the pet play. I'm nobody would ever know this, but I'm a very shy person. I'm extremely shy when I don't know somebody. Now, once I've been introduced, it's a whole different story.
It's the end of the game. It doesn't stop.
It doesn't. It's all
that's
downhill
the side
from
that
there.
lasts long.
Doesn't
So,
stop.
but what I've noticed, and for a lot of pups or pets in general, but specifically speaking, pups, is you've got the hood offers this bit of anonymity. That offered me a chance to be who I wanted to be without the fear of rejection.
Ooh.
So, like, there's so many parts of my I would love to be the type of person that can walk up to somebody at a bar or even just walking down the street and be like, "Hey, my name's Brett," or "Hi, I'm Zephyr," or whatever the case is, and nice to meet you. I cannot. I'd rather put a hot poker in my eye than do that. I can't do it. So, but put on my gear. First, leather. This is where I fell into the leather community, because when my leather, it kind of gave me a little bit of power.
Yes.
And I loved that, but I threw the pup gear on top of that, and especially when I was in my hood, at this point in time, and I know this sounds stupid, and it's all trivial and it's all mental, but I put on my pup hood, I put on my leather, I've got more power, and I've got some anonymity, and I can walk up to somebody and I can say bark, or I can say woof, or I can say anything I want to them, or even just, paw, make paws at them, or something to that effect, or even hello. And you know what? At that point in time, I had that power, I had that ability to do so. And the rejection, if there was a rejection of the pet. It was a rejection of the pup for me. It wasn't a rejection of me. And I tried, for me, I use that in my everyday life. I try and channel my inner Zephyr, right, every day, because it doesn't always work, but I try to the extent of being like, you know what? I'm a puppy, and I will start wagging my tail, and I don't even have my tail on, and I don't have my hood on.
I've seen you do that.
And I've only barked, and I've only wagged my tail in front of a client once. Well, once each. With work. Bad.
I'm sure that was wonderful.
Middle of Arkansas, and I'm in front of a group of people, and I barked. And they all looked at me and went, "What?" I said, "Inside joke, never mind." Left it. Anyways. But that sense of that anonymity, that sense of that I can be who I want to be without putting myself out there, was a very big turn. I don't want to say turn on, because it wasn't like a sexual turn on, but it turned me on to the pet play in general.
There's a level of and I feel that so well, because I'm one of those people that I've always been like, that fear of rejection has kept me from doing so many things. And
it's probably a good thing for me.
Probably too, same for me too. But I can see, like, going into, once you put that hood on, it's,
it's like drag.
Yeah.
You put on a whole nother personality. You have a whole nother persona that you can now be. I am no longer Brett. I am Tanya Tuckett. Or I am... That used to be my drag name many, many years ago. Another story.
Tanya Tuckett.
That's for a different show.
But you become... Now you're an entertainer. You're a performer. I would teach classes, and when I was teaching classes, I can stand up in front of an audience of 150 people, and I have no problem talking. Put me one-on-one with somebody, and I can't say a word.
And you freeze up. And it's funny, I tell people all the time, like, I'm gregarious and all of that stuff. But a lot of that is just, like, the role that I have picked up and played. Like, most people don't know who Jason... They know Jaybee. They don't know Jason. You know what I mean? And it's getting to know Jason is the hard part, because I'm like, I just want you to leave me alone, and I'm afraid of everything, and but being able to go out, and one of the things I loved about hanging out with on, like, Thursdays with Pound and all that, is it gives me a chance to kind of, like, be this person that, like, I've always wanted to be. You know, even though I don't have the hood on and I don't like identify as a pup or anything like that, like just being around everybody and just like it's such a vibe of freedom that you just can't help but like get swept up in it.
I'll tell you on the flip side of it, I am a hyper social person. I can talk to the wall and make a friend with it. Like I can talk to anyone.
I was so scared of you the first time I met you.
Really?
Yes.
Everyone is.
So many people. There are people that are terrified of me, and I do that a lot. It's weird because it does even. It's almost. Oh, it's a weird superpower because having that gear on amplifies that sociability. Like it just fucking amplifies it. I love it because it doesn't. Taking it off doesn't take anything away from me, but putting it on amplifies everything. It allows me to just attach and just. I don't know.
It's
like
powerful.
It opens up. Like it's like. Regardless, I guess, of how social I am, there are things that the minute that I become Saz, it's a relief. It's an unlock. It is whatever I was ever just locked down into. Because sociability, of course, has certain
You're just like Goku up.
Oh, essentially. Like, we're hitting Super Saiyan Blue.
You you Super Saiyan up when you put it on.
Listen, I'm trying to finish the series before the new one comes out. I'm on like 116 right now. It's bad.
Listen, you see what behind you. I'm a nerd for real.
Oh, God. I love it. It's so socially freeing, amongst other things, which we'll get to in the next part. No, I love it.
So here's why I think, like, when I met you, I was like, oh, he's just a sweetheart, and because I met you at a friend's house, I met you through someone else, and I was like, he's just the sweetest little. Like, I love him so much. And I met you, and I was like, and you had the gear on, and you had like, and I was like, this is a pretty man, and he's commanding this room, and like, there's no way that like. I think I said something to you, and like you were like, yeah, and then kept talking, and I was like, oh, all right, then I guess I'm not gonna make friends with this dude, and then it was just like randomly, I don't even know when it was. I think we went out one night.
I have a terrible habit of telling people, like, I will be in the middle of a conversation, and someone's like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, good, 1 second, and I will just do this for just a second, and they'll go to walk away, and I'm like, oh, hold on. And then I'll finish this conversation like, good to see you. Hey.
Yeah, I was just like, okay. Well,
the brain works bad. And
so
I was
like terrified. And
the funny thing is, I had the similar reaction. So there's a running joke here because the first time I met Saz, right? I mean, we were friendly and he was always nice. And then I was just like, he's just pretending to like me. He doesn't really like me. And I'm telling this to one of our mutual friends. I'm like saying, yeah, I don't think Jacob really likes me. I don't think Saz really likes me. Actually, it was Jacob at the time. I don't even think I knew your pet name at the time.
No.
But I don't think Jacob knows me or likes me. And then, meanwhile, he's over there telling the same friend, I don't think Brett really likes me.
Like, Brett's not being truthful with me. He doesn't like me. He's keeping me at a distance.
We were convinced for the longest time that we hated each other. The other one hated us.
That very, like, fake, like, oh, it's so good to see you. Oh.
Very much that.
And then all of a sudden we're, like, talking, and the middle person finally comes up and says, you know you guys are both saying the same thing, right?
And we're like, oh, we're friends.
Oh, we're actually friends.
What?
We're real friends?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and of course, now that's our running joke. He hates me.
He just hates
But
me.
he's actually one of my best friends. Actually, probably my best friend in Kansas City.
Aww.
It's
because I think it was it was Hamburger Mary's one night. I went out and you guys were all there. It was like not whatever their bear bust was, and I was like, and I saw you first, and then I saw you, and you came and gave me a hug, and I was like,
oh, we're friends.
We're actually friends.
He knows
who I am. Cool. And then and so we just started hung out that night, and just the vibe was like, oh, this is my road dog. Like, that's my girl. You know what I'm saying?
So what's bad is, so my partner is a cosmetologist, and as you know, a cosmetologist stands in front of a mirror all day. 2 days ago, whenever I got this very nice fresh haircut, was sitting in the mirror, and I look forward, but I always look down. And he was like, look up. And I looked up and I was like, damn, that's my face. All this idiot. I have the worst, like, just resting. Like, the worst resting bitch face ever. And I was like, that's not what I look like. He's like, that's your normal face. He's like, that is your normal face. And I was like, damn, just me at work, just pissed.
Just look. I was like, he's. I was like, that's a pretty man, but he is scared. He's scared. He don't like nobody. It's cool.
No, I love everyone.
But then I know you're like, I love everyone. It's fucking great. And
I'm like, please talk to me. Because if you don't, I'm gonna have to go talk to the wall. You're like, what's up? Like, no.
But actually, no. Our first time actually like talking was that party we went to.
We'll get to that later. Take your fucking pants off.
Take your fucking pants off, pledge.
My paddle's coming in.
That was so recently, too, though.
Yeah,
this friendship has blossomed very quickly.
Very quickly.
Well, my paddle's coming in.
I'm so excited. So how did you get into... I told you guys this is a tangent. How did you get into... Actually, before we go into how you got into pet play... Are you originally from Kansas City?
I went to high school out here.
Okay.
My parents were divorced. I went back and forth between houses a lot. I came to Kansas City when I was 13, and for the most part, I lived here until I was about 18.
Okay.
And then I moved away, and I just came back about 4 years ago.
Okay. And
I have lived all over. So I originally grew up in Louisiana. I've lived in New Orleans. I've lived in Lafayette, Louisiana, Baton Rouge. Lived in Atlanta for a short time, and then
You were an Atlanta gay?
I was an Atlanta gay.
Oh.
If you want, we can have a whole different show about gay communities in different places. Atlanta is a special place.
Atlanta is a special place.
Special gay community place.
It's the greatest, most terrible place I've ever seen.
Oh, it's something. There's somebody. We'll get them on the show too because they're from there. They just moved here. God, Joshua. I could say names. But I moved to Kansas City 5 years ago. I'm working on 6 now.
Okay. So none of us, it's funny because none of us are actually from Kansas City. Me, I'm a DC girl. Although, let me stop. I'm a Virginia girl.
Yes, if you're not from the DC.
If you're not from the DC area, I'm from a Virginia girl. But
pick a colony.
But there are. How did you what was growing up like, especially in Louisiana? Kansas City, I kind of have an idea of being like a gay kid in Kansas City. Louisiana, I have no idea.
It's a different time.
So we have at least a decade and a half between us.
Ooh, you didn't have to do that.
We're going to call that out.
I'm
later.
old.
We'll probably also tell that story in the next portion, too. So, growing up in Louisiana, not as a shock, I'm a slightly aggressive person. Slightly aggressive.
I never.
No, me? So, it was... I had a cousin that came out, and he was terrified of it. He was like, people are going to treat me different. And I was like, no, they won't. And he came out, and people really did treat him different. And it fucking blew my mind. I was like, why would they do that? And I was like, you're the same person. You've just said a different word. So then I came out. And I had one person ever challenge it. And of course, I don't do well with challenges. If you challenge, that's fine. You will be met with it. There's a beginning and an end, and that's it.
I will fuck you up.
And that's what happened. So it continued. Bullying happens whenever you come out and all that stuff. I quickly got to the point where it was just like, it was fights every day in school and stuff like that. I think I came out whenever I was like 14. And it was just constant. Like, somebody's going to call you like the F slur, queer, fag. You go through all of them. It was whenever I eventually got to a point where they're like, oh, there's no point in bullying him because he's just going to fight. So it was that. Now, that was in small town Louisiana. The minute I hit like New Orleans and Lafayette and Baton Rouge, like the larger cities, it changed. People didn't care if I was gay. No, they were like, all right, whatever. You're queer. You're gay. Whatever. Go play. Go put on your dog mask. Like, it was,
Good point.
Bill, what you? There's something else I want to bully you about, but that's fine. Just go over there. It was that. Was it difficult? I'm not going to say what I had growing up was anything more difficult than anyone else in the social aspect of that.
I think we grew up in very different times. So I came out when I was 14. And it was definitely one of those things for me where before I came out, after I came out, I was that kid in high school that was picked on, that was bullied, that, had my car vandalized every day in the parking lot, that had my, that had bricks thrown through my windshield as I was driving out of the school parking lot, that had, was literally, I probably knew the office staff on a first name basis because of being, I was that kid. And so, school, again, that's a lot of my social anxiety comes from that. And so taking it from there to, my outlet became, I started going to the Rocky Horror Picture Show when I was about 15 years old, and I started acting it out. I became part of the official Kansas City cast back in like 1990 something, 91.
You said that like
I know, yeah.
The 90s weren't that long ago. I don't shut up.
Yeah, well, about the year he was born,
right?
I was becoming
fucking babies.
So
I didn't even tell you how old I am.
So I was out there, and that became my family, and honestly, that became the whole reason I survived my teenage years. It allowed me to be free. It allowed me to, we were all freaks in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, right? I mean, they were gay, they were straight, they were all freaks, and it didn't matter, right? And that was what saved me. That was my life.
You found that community.
And I grew up here in Kansas City, or for the high school, I was at Shawnee Mission South, which was very, a very different, scenario. I mean, I took a taser with me to my prom because I was afraid I was going to get beat up. I mean, it was bad, but I also had my finals, screw you. To this school. I graduated in my junior year.
Nice.
And 1992, and I graduated, and
you ain't have to do that, bitch.
And my prom was very much I showed up in a black bodysuit. I walked one of my best friends in. I've got pictures of this.
You should.
I have to see this.
And I'm in a bodysuit, black slacks, slit from mid-thigh to mid-calf with fluorescent green fishnets on underneath, a black top hat, a black crop jacket, my freedom rings, because that was a thing at the time. I had my freedom rings on. We had our faces painted with some makeup. I walked her in on a leash. We were handcuffed together.
That's where the pathway comes in.
She had chains connected at her nipples, wrapped around her waist, through her crotch, up and over her shoulder. It was one of these things. Her head was jet black going into a ponytail, fire engine red coming out. She was wearing 6-inch stilettos. She was wearing tattered, torn fishnets, and this was my final screw this school. This was like a Cinderella ball going to Shawnee Mission South prom. And we showed up like this. It was the parting of the Red Seas.
I live so hard. Okay, so guys, we are going to transition to our After Dark portion of the show. So, for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. We are as always, sponsored by Black Unicorn Magics. That's etsy.com/shop/Black Unicorn Magics, as you see below, for that 25% discount, colorful magics. Also by Paul's Diner on Blue Ridge Boulevard. So get you a good old burger and some fries from Paul's Diner. And we are going to take a break. Thank you guys so much for sitting down on the Legends couch or chairs with me. One day we'll get a couch. Where can people find you guys at?
You can find Pup Saz, unfortunately, only on Twitter at Saz_Iraq on Twitter.
So for me, I am only on Facebook. My whole other long story, but my Facebook name is George Dane.
That's why I said, how many names do you have?
Right. George Dane on Facebook. And then our group is Midnight Howl KC. We have a like page. You can get to us on Facebook as well. So Midnight Howl KC.
All right. Thank you guys once again for coming in and seeing and hanging out with us. We're going to go ahead and go do our After Dark portion where we're going to get real dirty.